Okay, I think we are live now. So welcome everyone. Welcome to this very first and very unique panel about the future of remembrance, a journey across Europe. My name is Nikki. I'm the Program and Outreach Officer for the European Union of Jewish Union. And today with me, we are joined by Sonia and Yoni from UGS and WGC, who will co-moderate this panel. And we are counting, I'm very honored to count, with students from Italy, Russia, Germany, and Italy, and the UK, who will be a little bit going through the discussion with us today. As well, if you're following from Facebook, either in the Facebook page of UGS or WGC, feel free at any point to write down your questions, and we will be sure to throw it to the panelists. So I would like to introduce first Simone. Simone is the president of the Italian Union of Jewish Students, called UJ. He's actually 25 years old. He was born and raised in Turin, and he's the president of UJ since 2020. He's an engineer student, and he's also studied in the Universitat Internacional de Catalunya. He's currently working at the Lavazza Group in the engineering department. On the other hand, joining us today, we have Nina, who is the UGS president-elect. She's from the UK, and she is in her final year studying English literature at the University of Bristol. And Mazel Tov, Nina, from June on, she will be the new president of the Jewish Student Unions in the UK. As well, joining us from Jerusalem today, but from Germany, we have Avital, who was born in Berlin. And after studying art and history, she moved to Israel to study her degree on Jewish studies and Jewish experimental education with the Pardes Institute. She's a treasurer and is covering topics such as inclusion, woman empowerment, interfaith dialogue, and LGBTQ issues. She's very driven in equality and loving and guidance. She's dreamed of an advanced Jewish communities in Europe and a vivid Jewish life in Germany. As well with us today from Russia, we have Ilya, who is the CEO and co-founder of the Russian Union of Jewish Students. In his professional fields, we count on him in commercial real estate and film production. As an educational background, he's doing actually a master's in management and marketing in the Moscow State Institute of International Relations. He also had a bachelor's degree in the Bluntville University of Pennsylvania in the US. And I think I have introduced the panelists, and I will be very pleased as well to introduce the two co-moderators of today. In one hand, we have Sonia, who is a Jewish educator and an activist. She's currently living in Serbia, but in the past has been living in Hungary and Israel. She's a Jewish educator at the European Union of Jewish Students, and she has also worked in adaptive leadership at Masa, and actually the executive director as well of the NGO called Haver Serbia, and then as well works with Limud and local Jewish communities. She's passionate about exploring Jewish wisdom and advocating for minority and human rights. And calling it today as well from New York, we have Yoni, who is the campus affairs manager at the World Jewish Congress. He's currently based in New York City. He has served on the board of directors of Hillel at the Binghamton and the advisory board of Jewish on Campus. He's a graduate on the Binghamton. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this well, so Yoni can correct me. But he graduated in 2019 with a bachelor in business administration and a minor in Israeli studies. He completed as well an MBA in December 2020. He's been involved with the Jewish communities for over 7 years, taking active role in IIP, Stand With Us, Asbara Fellowship, and more. And now that I have been able to present all of you, I will give the word to Sonia and Yoni, who will be co-moderating this panel today. Again, remember that if you're following this panel through Facebook and social media, feel free to post any question or comment at any given time.
Thank you, Mickey, for this introduction. I don't know how you remember all of us, but thank you for introducing our panelists and also Yoni and myself. Just to frame a little bit what we will be doing in next 1 hour is actually we will be talking about your approaches, your challenges when we talk about remembrance, culture of remembrance, remembrance days, and we will try to learn each other's realities and also maybe create some kind of connection and place where we can help each other overcome the challenges when we talk about remembrance in our communities, unions, etc. So I would like Yoni to introduce us to the first step into the conversation. And as Miki said, if you have any questions, please post them on Facebook and we will hear about them and we will try to reflect.
Absolutely. So I think it's best that we really just jump right in. And I think to start, we should start with something personal for each of you. And it would be great if each of you could answer this. But for you, what does Holocaust remembrance mean? And what is your connection, if any, to the Holocaust? And let's start with Nina.
Hi. So to me, Holocaust remembrance is just mostly about honoring the victims and kind of, I guess this might be jumping ahead to other questions, but like a lack of politicization and making sure that we are truly honoring the people that passed away. And I also think, to me, Holocaust remembrance also has to encompass not just Jewish people that died in the Holocaust. All the events that I have run have included people of different minorities who also were sadly killed during the Holocaust. And I think a kind of intersectional approach to that is something I'm very passionate about encouraging. Personal connection to Holocaust, thankfully all my family were in England and Ireland already by the time of the Holocaust, so no one in I don't have any personal family members, but I've been to Poland on school trips and stuff and have learned a lot about the Holocaust and want to educate other people about it.
Absolutely. Ilya?
Yeah, good evening. Nice to meet you all. For me, Remembrance Day is very important because more and more people who survived unfortunately pass away, and so we have very short time to communicate with these people and hear from them personally how it was. And so we really try to launch some projects and meet with these people to know and to find out what was that.
Thank you so much. Avital?
Hi, thanks. Thank you, first of all, for having me here. So for me, Shoah remembrance is probably the source of the identity crisis of European Jews, or in my personal opinion, at least Jews living in Germany nowadays. My personal story is kind of mixed. I have like one half that was like during the Shoah fighting for the Red Army, and the other half was on a big scale killed. So, and I think that's a very common picture in Germany, that Jews will have very mixed and very personal stories, and will try to find themselves in this history. And what does it mean actually to have this emotional and historical and personal baggage, and what are we doing with that for ourselves and for the society? And I think the Shoah Remembrance Day is one of those most symbolic days where we are kind of like forced to question ourselves, those kind of questions. And I hear the points of like politicization, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it as well, or about minorities that are not heard, that we don't talk enough about. I think that these all kind of mixed emotions go into the modern understanding of Shoah remembrance.
Absolutely. And Simone?
Here I am, sorry, I was muted. I think that our duty, what we are, is the guardians of the memory. We are the, let me say, the keepers of remembrance, of the suffering of our fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers in some cases. Personally, I lost members of my family at the Auschwitz camp. I touched the tragedy that befell our people and other human groups. I have known the pain, well, not personally, thanks to God, but I've known the pain of those who had to flee to Switzerland to escape the Nazi fascist fury. My strength, however, lies in having spent all my childhood, my entire childhood, with my great-grandmother, who actually survived Auschwitz concentration camp. And I feel the keeper, one of the keeper of the remembrance, thanks to her teaching, and to the feeling she could transmit to me.
Thank you, Simone, and everyone else for sharing your personal stories as well. Can you tell us a little bit more what is your community doing during Remembrance Days, and what is your country doing Remembrance Days? And when you refer to the community, just define a little bit, what do you mean? Like, who do you refer to when we say community? Please choose how you want, whoever wants to start, please do.
I don't mind, I can start. So in the UK, there's a variety of things. We have an organization called the HMDT, the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust, and they kind of often do a centralized approach to remembrance. So they have lots of campaigns that people will pick up across the UK. So I know this year they have a photography competition, which is for young people, students, 14 to 25-year-olds, I believe, where they want to create an online exhibition about remembrance. So people can send in photographs about what it means to them to remember. Lighting up the darkness, I think, is the theme, that kind of thing. So that's one of the centralized approaches we have. And then on a more individual level, student-wise, each Jewish society on each campus around the UK will hold a different Holocaust Memorial Day event. So where I am in Bristol, we have the daughter of a Holocaust survivor coming to speak to university students tomorrow. But then across the country, it's all different. So I know in Oxford, they have a survivor, and in Birmingham, they have another son of a survivor. Obviously now it's sad we can't have, we're not all having survivors. A lot of us are having children of survivors because times is getting that a lot of them are passing away. So that's probably the biggest difference that we have this year. But yeah, it's a mixture of events, online events, and national campaigns to do with remembrance. That's the approach the UK, I think, is taking.
If I understood you correctly, the question was also in the direction of like, what is the status quo basically in the community and in the country? And I think that that's something where, first of all, like with the as mentioned, with like survivors passing away, isn't a big change, and is also in a big change in Germany as we see also political shifts. I think that like if we look at Germany as a whole country, over 50% say that they feel like there is too much focus in the overall society, in education, in politics around remembrance, which is a crazy number if we think about it. Over I don't remember, like around the same number claim that Jews are too focused on the Shoah in Germany, that they just identify over the Shoah or using the Shoah for their own interests. And so I think that those like broader pictures are important to keep in mind, that I guess like every fourth German has some kind of anti-Semitic beliefs. So that's the status quo. And then this kind of like in this kind of like situation, the German Jewish community has to find themselves, and has to question, how do I fit in, especially as the new generation, and who is my target group? And I think that the initiatives that are happening are often missing the target groups. So what is the purpose of, I don't know, me holding up a sign on Instagram saying we remember, if my crowd is Jewish? Just like putting it out there. What is the purpose of doing the same thing in a non-Jewish community? So I think like questioning, who are we approaching? Who needs the remembrance? That's something that is the biggest task currently to figure out.
Thank you, Avital. Also into leading us in some serious questions that I hope we will go deeper on very soon. Simone, Ilya, please.
Shall I step in? Okay, so well, Italy at a governmental, regional, municipal level, and through many other realities and associations, organizes many appointments for the day, or rather the month of memory. I don't know how to call it in English. Insights, concerts, conferences, exhibitions, and much more. The Jewish communities, well, I would say the Jewish communities are not to be outdone. The critical points that we should, that should be developed, in my opinion, perhaps talking about best practices, are basically two. The fact that remembrance must be a value, a shared wound for 365 days a year. And second, the importance of knowing how to communicate that the history of the Jewish people goes far beyond the Shoah itself. There's much, much more to be told, and we have to learn how to tell it.
Okay, thank you, Simone. Ilya, can you please tell us what is the situation in Russia?
Yeah, thank you. So speaking about the country in a whole, we have, I think, dozens of events and projects in January, and a lot of major Jewish organizations are involved. And so there are a lot of exhibitions, conferences, meetings, some concerts and so on. But due to pandemics, unfortunately, a lot of events now are online, but I think that it's a worldwide story, so it's okay for now. And speaking about our union, we launch some projects, as I said, meetings with prisoners, with former prisoners of ghettos and concentration camps, so Holocaust survivors. But I agree at this point with previous speakers that it's very important to identify the audience, because Jewish people know their history in majority, but non-Jewish, there are some problems. And so first of all, we try to organize these meetings with Holocaust survivors, not only in January, not only prior to Remembrance Day, but throughout the year. So in, I think, 2020, we organized maybe, in 2019, when it was offline, we organized, I think, 3 to 4 such meetings in different universities, and we usually invite not only Jewish students but all who want. And so we see how dramatic to non-Jewish people is to hear from the people who survived and who saw how it was, and to hear their personal stories. And so it has, I think, a huge effect. And also we conducted, I think, during 2 years, All Russian theater project or contest. And so young people, students, and even younger were to make some theater event for maybe 10 minutes or something like that, and to in a theatrical way to tell the story of the Holocaust. And it's very important that the majority of the participants were from schools, and so they were, I think, maybe from 16 to maybe 24 years old, and the majority of them were non-Jewish. And so it was really amazing how non-Jewish people tell the story of our history. Yeah, and we think that during such events, more people can feel for a little bit how it was, yeah, and somehow associate themselves with this tragedy. So something like that.
Thank you, Ilya. Avital, please.
What I really liked about like the comments is actually how people include others and still manage to, is like, even in a pandemic, to like bring an activist part in that. And what I wanted to add as well is what JSAT, the Jewish Student Union of Germany, is currently doing is actually a campaign that is criticizing the approach of the simple political instrumentalization of the Remembrance Day. So our approach for this year is quite the opposite. It's gonna be about why are we over and over again talking about this whole like hashtag never again thing. What does it mean, like saying hashtag never again if never again is already broken? And that's something we have to face. So what we did is we collected statements from like a lot of young Jewish activists about what does never again mean for them, and we publicized them also throughout the media. And what like people will read is things like never again is a lie, because that's how people feel nowadays, or never again is a broken promise. But also never again means the goal one day not to have police in front of every Jewish institution, like the illusion. And that was a very interesting project to see, to actually have a self-check-in of like, where do we actually stand with remembrance?
Thank you, Avital, very much, and everyone else. I would just like to reflect and maybe recapture what you said. And it seems to me that each of your countries are actually trying or doing different and similar things. I think the conversation with the survivor is very present. Also, Simone said that we shouldn't just talk about the Holocaust, especially if we communicate it to the outside world. And I think inside the toolkit that was created now, because we felt also that We Remember sign is not enough. and we are trying to enlarge that. You will see different methods how you can present the life that was before Holocaust, during the Holocaust, and after the Holocaust, especially when we communicate to the outside of the Jewish community. And I like I think also Nina and also Vital and Ilya also mentioned the importance of communicating with non-Jews about remembrance, about Shoah, and we will maybe dive into that a little bit more even later.
I completely agree with you, Sonia. I do think it's very interesting to hear from each of you what your communities are doing, what your countries are doing, and how it takes shape and how it's similar across Europe and also a little bit different. But I also want to know, I guess, on a more union level for each of your unions, what have been some of the challenges that you have faced really practically in trying to create Holocaust remembrance events, educational initiatives, and anything like that? What are the challenges that you face as you go through it? Anyone who wants to start can go ahead.
I can otherwise start. I think the biggest challenge for the German Union was actually to find this, like, their own identity within remembrance culture. We preach every time that Jews are more than the Shoah, Jews are more than Israel-Palestine, Jews are more than anti-Semitism. That these are not the three main points that we identify, that are like our identification points, or these are not our, this doesn't make up our entire identity. So throughout the year, we are basically just focusing on like bringing a positive narrative, showing what it means to be Jewish nowadays, and bringing out the diversity and stuff like that. And then like going back to like Shoah again is just like, even in terms of like philosophy, kind of hard, because at the end it is something that makes a big part of us. So that was a challenge. It was also a challenge of what is the message, because with the positive narrative that we are kind of like following, we are trying to actually like connect it with something like democracy values or something like that. But what if you are going through a hard time? What if you are maybe struggling with democracy? So I think finding a right way of how you actually make your point and how you do that without breaking the honor of the Shoah, that's what's challenging.
Simone, have you seen any difficulties or challenges that your union has faced in implementing Holocaust remembrance campaigns, events, or anything like that?
Not really. I mean, not practically. I wouldn't call it a difficulty. I would call it a challenge. It hasn't been an issue, but it's something we shall improve every year more and more. I think we have to move on to parallel tracks, which intertwine in a convincing narrative. One is the historical plan. So knowing how to tell the facts in an engaging way, in a touching, in an empathetic way. History is the teacher, so I think if it must be explained patiently to everyone, depending on the interlocutor you have in front of you, you will choose a different way to speak and a different way to act. But it must be told with a lot of patience to everybody. The second aspect that has to go together with the first one is that of feelings. I don't want to to sound like trivial. Our feelings, I mean, the fear of not being able to give a complete testimony or a convincing as a direct one, I mean, as a direct testimony, the pain of our families, the awareness that nowadays there still is anti-Semitism, it mutes, it changes. We are basically good people. Jewish people are like every other possible people in the world. There are good people, bad people, tall people, short people, and so on. But still, I've personally done nothing bad to anybody in my life. I think so. I hope so, I mean. But still, for some people, I am a Jew. And this means that there is something which can be from weird to dangerous to bad, and I don't really feel that we are safe in Europe. I feel we do have to build a stronger let me say, a stronger network amongst ourselves. We have to know each other. We have to know how to, I wouldn't say how to defend ourselves. I would say how to present ourselves, right? How to describe, how to tell who we are, how we are, what do we do, to tell them that we are normal, we are variated, we are heterogeneous, that in terms of politics, of backgrounds, of education, we do have a lot in common, and we do have a lot of differences amongst ourselves. So by telling who we are, we shall also be able to tell what our fears are and to explain them. Also the one strictly linked to the remembrance. This is the challenge we are facing, in my opinion. We're pretty able to organize events, to organize conferences, webinars, or whatever. But the methodology which lies behind this has to be very, very precise, very delicate, I would say, because depending on the person who listens to you, you might choose different words and different aspects to point out as first.
Thank you. Nina, Ilya, do either of you have any challenges you want to share?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that I've seen is trying to find a unique approach to remembrance. So even just on a personal level, it's my third year of university now, third year of being involved in remembrance events for the student community. And I just sometimes feel like if you're not Jewish and you don't have the sense of duty and a sense of personal connection to the Holocaust, there might not be any reasons why you'd want to come to a Holocaust Memorial Day event. So it's kind of like keeping the integrity of the events while also making sure that you are attracting the people that need to see it and need to hear it. So we will always get, hundreds of Jewish people coming to these events, but especially in an age of COVID where it's online and our students are spread across the country because most of them can't return to university, how do you engage people and how do you show them that this is an event that's worthwhile and worth going to? Because for a lot of people, just a Zoom event with a survivor won't cut it. If you're a random student and you don't have any personal connection to the Holocaust, you wouldn't necessarily want to take hours out of your day to listen to an elderly person speak to you on Zoom, and that's something you would just have to work around. So I think it's creating more creative and like really having your finger on the pulse of what your students are interested in. So I know at some universities they're doing talks about Holocaust literature or talks about different kinds of things. So making sure that you're really, tapping into what your students are interested in, I think is the most important thing at the moment.
Ilya, any thoughts?
I think that, as I remember, we haven't faced some real difficulties or challenges, and I think in the whole we feel really safe. I mean, the Jewish community now. So I think that comparing to maybe the period of the Soviet Union, yeah, the times changed, and so now the Jewish population feel really safer. And talking about the Holocaust memory, yeah, and the Remembrance Day, I think that maybe a point to notice that when you talk about the Jewish tragedy and talk about some numbers and some facts, there are some people who say that a lot of other nations also lost a lot of people, and so why are you so unique? Why are you so special? So you are the number one nation. Why? And so and here we have to not argue, yeah, but say that there is no denial of losses of other nations, yeah, but we want it's our history, yeah, and we want to talk about it, yeah, and we want that our descendants, I mean, not only our as Jewish people, yeah, but in general, make something useful, yeah, from this history lessons, and think better in the future. Yeah, and also, as Nina said, yeah, when now we have some online events, certainly there are some technical issues when you try to connect some elderly people, yeah, and but this is quite simple, yeah, to solve. So.
Thank you, Ilya, as well. I would just like to connect to what you said and maybe offer like a Serbian perspective and a Serbian challenge, because it's kind of similar, but also very different to Russian perspective, let's say it in that way. And many times when we organize commemoration events or Holocaust education, we are faced with a question like why we are talking about the Jews and not about Serbs who were also victims. And as Ilya said, yes, they were victims in a very different way, but also it offers people the chance to not really face the history that we had a Nazi regime and collaborators in our countries, and we just tend to forget that, and politicians usually use it for gaining points against Croatians, for example. So the tensions that were here present really during the 90s still are really bringing a lot of challenges in how we commemorate Holocaust, how things are remembered in Serbia. I think we are still one of the rare countries that don't have a Holocaust museum because of the politics and tensions between Serbian and Croatian narratives during the Second World War. So as Ilya said, I think for us the biggest challenge is really like why Jews and why we don't mention others. And usually I always say I think we should mention others, but it's not what I will do. It somebody else needs to do it. So let's put it very openly.
And I know that I asked the question, so it's funny that I'm going to give input. But as you guys were speaking, I also was thinking a little bit from the United States perspective, in the sense that there are many, many people who join our remembrance events every year who take the time to remember and know about the Holocaust. There are many who distort the Holocaust, deny the Holocaust. But there's also that huge chunk, the majority in between, who don't know, but also don't hate. They just don't know. So I think a huge challenge that we're facing, especially in the US, and maybe it's true in Europe as well, is how do we reach those people who aren't being taught, who really have no idea what the Holocaust is and what happened then. So I think that's a huge challenge as well. And I just wanted to bring that up for some thought as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Yoni. We start started a little bit to talk about the challenges of remembrance during pandemics. For example, today I really try to technically make capable a Holocaust survivor. After 1 hour, she started crying, and I was like, okay, we will try tomorrow for some other event. But I know that there are many, not just technical challenges, but how did you adopt your programs during pandemics? That's maybe what we would like to hear, so people can maybe learn and get inspired. Nina, can we start from you? You mentioned
Sure.
it.
I mean, I don't have a particularly unique answer to this. I think most people will say something very similar, that a lot of it is just moving things online. So it's just having, instead of a survivor speaking in person or an educational talk in person, it's a talk on Zoom instead. But then the challenge with how to get that out to people, what I've seen a lot of people in the UK doing is kind of partnering with history societies. That's something that's done a lot. The Jewish Society will put on an event in collaboration with the History Society. So that way you're reaching a completely different demographic of people who are interested in the historical side. Back when I was in first year, we did a collaboration with like the LGBT Society, the Disabled Society. So we kind of represented everyone that perished during the Holocaust, which I think now, if you're trying to reach people that aren't just Jewish, it might be worth reaching out to special interest groups like that, because it's hard when it's online to reach beyond your own limited resources, I guess.
Well, I think we shouldn't be too concerned about the current situation in terms of how to spread the voice, how to properly remember. We can easily, we do have the tools, the facilities. We can do it, and I would say in a quite easy way. The point is that we should, according to me, we should innovate. We joined the We Remember campaign. I do agree with Avital. We Remember is already broken. It's always been broken. We never remember enough. But still, I'm not talking about the Jewish people. I'm talking about all the people. But still, the point is that we joined it because we still feel that we can't skip it. You know, it's still something which has a lot of meaning to us. We want to take part to such an important initiative, and so we joined it. And we would again, and we will again. But how does this hashtag, which is repeated and repeated year after year, could actually put something new in people's mind? How does the bulb get enlightened to people which are not deep into this, who didn't suffer directly or indirectly the trauma, the suffering of the Shoah? We think we should definitely find something more, I wouldn't say more convincing, but more innovative, something new, something which goes far beyond a simple hashtag. I have nothing against hashtags, but I think they're not enough if it only becomes an hashtag, a naked hashtag without a proper content, a pot in which you can put some actual things, some learning. This is just a sheet of paper in which you write down something which is important, which is honorable. We're entirely capable of writing down and imagining hashtags, but a campaign shall go way deeper into facts, that shall involve people in some innovative way, in some different way, something that people had never heard before. This is what we want to implement, and to do this on UJ side, we chose not to develop such initiative during the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. We want to do this or for Yom HaShoah or for some random day, because memory, as I've previously told, should definitely be carried out 365 days a year.
If I can add to that, I think that exactly that's what we need. What first of all, Jay said is also not really amused by like just putting it on the 27th of January, and by that having this feeling of like, okay, our job is done, because that's not even the idea of this quite empty hashtag. And what we were quite successful with in the past few months with the pandemic is, instead of bringing or taking our ideas to Zoom, or to like basically just to Zoom, because we all know that people are tired and annoyed by Zoom, most of them, we are bringing this kind of information and our thoughts to the streets. So on November 9th, which is in Germany the Remembrance Day of the pogroms, we encouraged our activists all over Germany to basically like do street art and do arts around the stumbling stones of that we already have, to show that, first of all, a stumbling stone is also critical in its own idea, but also to make it visible, to make it so much harder to just like pass, because like in social media, it's so easy to pass things that you don't want to see. And our goal by this initiative back then was to force people to see it and make it impossible to make the Shoah invisible on the streets.
Ilya, I think you wanted to say something. Thank you, Avital.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add that we have a very similar approach as in Italy, and the thing is that a lot of people, as we think, become very active during these days, and they say how they remember. And as you all said, that a lot of people put those hashtags and so on. But throughout the year, nothing is done. And there is a feeling that it's important only for a lot of people, only these particular days. And so, as I said, that to solve this issue, we try to make the events throughout the year, so that this theme is not only in January. And we also agree that the theme with hashtags is quite maybe obsolete now, and we have to figure out some new approaches. And also, I think that we now have a younger generation, who use TikTok and so on, and we have to find out some new ways, how to reach a lot of people, and how to reach, as we already said, that non-Jewish people who don't know and who don't care.
Yeah, just thank you everyone for the insights. I think the hashtag problem came up over and over again, and I think without protecting it at all, I think it had its purpose, and its purpose was to really reach a lot of people, as Ilya said, but it's impossible to go deeper with a hashtag, right? So I think what we will talk a little bit now as the last question Jana will post it, but just think about like each thing that we do, talk with the Holocaust survivor, art, hashtag, it has its own purpose. It shouldn't be, as you said, a one thing that we do just on the 27th or 28th or 26th or 20 or 30th, like around this International Remembrance Day. But like what other things I'm just debating in my head, like how we can, I'm not sure we can find one thing that will serve each purpose that you mentioned. Go deeper, reach a lot of people, mobilize Jews and non-Jews. So I just want to pose that as my thinking. Yoni, can you please lead us to the last question?
Yes, and I completely agree, and I agree with a lot of what you all said. And I think it's very interesting because, Sonia, as you were saying, each one of these ways of remembrance have their own purposes. So if it's using that hashtag, it's getting the word as far as possible out there, reaching as many people as you can, whereas holding an intimate survivor event where they can share their story has a very different purpose. So each way that we remember, each way that we educate does something different, and they're all important together, which is why they're collectively so crucial. Not just tomorrow, not just on Yom HaShoah, but really throughout the year. Which I think really leads to this final question. It's pretty crazy how fast time has flown, but looking to the future, whether this be 5 years, 10 years, whatever it may be down the line, what do you think Holocaust remembrance, the need for Holocaust education will look like, specifically in your country, but also for Europe as a whole? Ilya, would you want to go first?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I don't know how it can be in 5 or 10 years, but looking at trends, yeah, and everything becomes more and more online, and so I think that, and also thinking about the fact that, as we already talked about, that more and more survivors pass away, and so in 5 or 10 years we will hardly meet some Holocaust survivor, only his descendants. And so for now, I think, and we try to start this project to maybe feel some memories of these people, to have some archive and some videos, and maybe for new generations then to watch it. And I think that also in the future we'll have more museums, exhibitions, and so on, where people can find out about this tragic page of our history. So nothing particular, and so some abstract ideas.
Abid, Simone, go ahead.
In order to answer to your question, I'll make a step back and start from Sonia's last intervention. I am worried that we are starting to be sick of telling to other people what happened to us, what happened to our fathers and grandfathers, etc. And I see, as you surely do as well, I see that people, people not that aware of the tragedy that happened are a bit are a bit annoyed, are a bit bored, are a bit sick of hearing every year the same sobbing, the same victimism. I'm talking about the way they may perceive it. And this has to be healed on our part. But if we get sick too, if we feel, because it's heavy, I mean, it's tiring, it's heavy, it's hard, it's harsh, it's difficult. I feel it. When I was a bit younger, not that I feel old now, but still, when I was a little bit younger, I had some burning instinct, and I wanted to tell everybody what happened and how did it happen and why and which are the historical roots and whatever. And now I feel I still do it. It's my job and it's my duty, but it's starting to be redundant, doesn't it? I mean, if it's a little bit this way for us, how is it for the others? How is it for the listeners? In order to this is my perception. I would be glad to be wrong. I'm not sure about what I'm telling, actually. It's just an idea. In order to avoid such tragedy, because this would be a tragedy, we're talking about best practices. So I would say the best practice to cure such a phenomenon is to start to think new ways to communicate the tragedy, and also the fact that the Jewish people are way more than this tragedy. Our history is long, is tragic, is glorious, is amazing, is fascinating. There is more than this. There are a lot of happy moments during our year. There are a lot of genocides done towards us, domestic ones, less industrial ones, but still they have to be told as well. So we're a complex group of people in diaspora for many centuries, more than this. And so by starting to share more than the Shoah, perhaps we will find the willing and this burning instinct I was telling about before, to tell with conviction, to share the feelings I've told before, and to start approaching this fundamental telling on another perspective, with another way of with another I would say with less heaviness and with the same sense of responsibility, but doing it with more relief, perhaps.
I would totally sign up to that. I think that everything that you just said, Simone, was totally right. And to add to that, I think that we need to distinguish between the inner work we have to do and the outer work, and to be aware that there is a lot to do in our own community, and us being strong and united is kind of like a needed ground to actually go outside and educate, and bring out the message that we want to share. And I think that at this point we kind of like need to question, like, yes, we need to unite ourselves, but also I think that we can't find a united approach. I don't think that the recipe will be to unite as, let's say, even Europe, and find a solution, because what we just heard, I mean, let's say compared like Germany and Russia. For Russia, there is like the whole like also national pride coming in. It's not just remembrance, it's not just tragedy. So I think that the approach should not be like, it can be about best practice, but it's not united. I don't think that we can go a united way. I think that in the communities or in the countries, we have to unite different spheres like education, politics, culture, minorities, and stuff like that. So I think that there has to be a balance. How far are we uniting, and who is part of the united process? And of course, looking into the future, it's gonna be a huge challenge of how do we approach the young generation, the next generation. And I think that also basically from knowing arts or from knowing history, we have to question the goal. And the goal is we wanna maintain the emotions and the lessons that we have, but we know that we can't do the same thing again because the same thing is passing away. So I think that we need to acknowledge that that's going to be a new way. And if we want to have like those emotions, maybe there will be a difference between showing them simply a video of a Holocaust, of a Shoah survivor, and like us talking to a Shoah survivor. So I think that's going to be a big question to the education and to culture and to all of us.
So yeah, just to follow on from that, I think what's really going to be key over the next 5-10 years and beyond is going to be striking a balance between kind of, you need to grab the attention of the young people today, and we are notoriously bad at having attention spans that go on for particularly long, bad at listening to long speeches, and bad at often engaging with things that aren't in our personal interests. But I've seen, obviously, there's a lot of projects that go too far that way. There was that one, I'm not sure how far it reached, that Instagram one with Eva stories. Yeah, that one, where things can get a bit too insensitive. It was basically, if anyone doesn't know, it was a girl who would have been around a teenager in the Holocaust, and they were giving her an Instagram account to show, so she could represent the experience of going through the Holocaust as a teenager today. So I think it's a balance between that. Was obviously, a lot of people found that quite insensitive, but still maybe that same kind of level of engagement with the younger people. So realizing things like Instagram, TikTok are the ways that a lot of young people nowadays do engage with these kind of things, but it's striking that balance and keeping the integrity and the emotion behind these events, which is a challenge we're all going to have to address over the next few years.
Great, thank you so much, really, for insights and challenges and troubles. And what I can see is actually that we, at least people who are here that I can see, we share the same struggles, meaning that we don't really quite know what we should do. We don't know really how we should do it. Sometimes the Remembrance Day is really burdening us. We are aware that soon Holocaust survivors won't be with us, so what we do with that. I would like, as an educator, I would like to make one comment about the children of Holocaust survivors. And my suggestion is really not to ask them to retell the story of their parents, but to retell their childhood and their trauma that was transmitted to them. Because somehow I feel that we absolutely neglect that. And it's very important that they are human beings with their own traumas because they are children of Holocaust survivors. And the story of their parents will anyway come up through it. I think when we were creating this toolkit, we were also struggling what we should have in it. And for the toolkit, this is the first year of the toolkit, and we offered a very diverse but also very basic ideas what you can do for a Holocaust commemoration. It has many of the ideas that you mentioned. It has a little bit of art. It has a talk with a Holocaust survivor and how we approach it. It has life prior, during, and after the Holocaust and how we can deliver that. It has a little bit of campaign of online commemorations. It's a combination of many things that we mentioned, but it's really the first step. And I invite you and all the people who are following on Facebook is to join us, and with ideas, with projects that you tried or that you want to try that we can include next year's, because we want to develop it together with basically all of you. With none of us has a recipe, which is a good thing to know, but we are working on it and we are trying to figure out what we need. And we are also very aware what Avital said, that our communities are very different. So it might be that we need absolutely different things. But if we can collect our wisdom and our creativity and our passion for remembrance, let's do it together. And this toolkit was really a first step in building that. And I will also use this moment really to thank Yoni and his team for their time, creativity, and for inviting us and the World Union of Jewish Students to partner with them in building this. And let's hope that next year we will have more unions who will join us with the ideas.
I reciprocate my thanks. You guys really had such amazing ideas and contributed so much to this toolkit. It would not have been possible without your hard work. So thank you. Just so that you all know, this toolkit, which, as we've said, has been developed between WJC, EUJS, and WUJS, is available in the comment section of the Facebook Live right now. So feel free to go check it out. Feel free to use it. And also know that we're all here to help. As Sonia just said, this is very much a first step. These are the basic ideas that we can give you in just approximately 40 pages. There's so much more to do. So many more ideas to be had. So we would love to hear from you. If you want help, if you have ideas, please reach out to either us, EUJS, to share them, to work together on them, because we really want to do amazing things together. So that toolkit is available in the comment section. You'll also be able to find it on all of our social medias and websites, and so on and so forth. Of course, I'd be amiss to not mention and of course, as only one way of remembering, but an important way of remembering is please join the We Remember campaign, which does culminate tomorrow. This should not be the only way that you remember, as discussed so importantly on this panel, but it is an important way to reach so many people and ensuring that the memories of the Holocaust do not get forgotten. Lastly, I want to say tomorrow is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, which is the official day the United Nations has listed as the day that the world remembers the Holocaust. And as such, EUJS and WJC will both be holding hosting commemorations in honor of the day. So feel free to check out both of our Facebook pages for details on those commemorations. And I really want to thank all of our panelists today for taking the time. It really was so insightful. I learned so much. I'm sure the viewers did as well. And thank you to the viewers. Thank you to all of you for taking the time to watch today. And I wish you all the very best.